Today I'm going to go ahead and get the fuel tank put back on the bike, and I'm going to go ahead and start the process of putting the lower fairings on because I got to put the 6.5s in there as well. Just in case you say, why didn't you put on the left side covers? Because I don't want to put the maxi fuse in yet while I'm still working up on top in the front of the bike, you know what I mean? Because the battery and the security system on there is just going to sap the bike dry, and I don't feel like hooking the tender up to it and having to step over it every time I'm moving around the bike. So rather than trip myself, fall on the bike, then the whole thing fall over, you know what I'm saying? And then the light bulbs blow and then the house blow up. I'd rather just go ahead and leave it off until the end. When I get everything buttoned up, then I know I can put the maxi fuse in, fire everything up, and we can go from there. All right, because I'll be switching out this actual accessory plug, a powered accessory plug, mind you, with a data cord, USB, I need to go ahead and put it up. So I'm not going to take it out because I'm not sure. I'm sure it won't throw a code, but I'm not going to take it out of here. I'm not going to unplug it from the other part. So I'm just going to kind of set it to the side and cover up the head on it with some shrink wrap. But let's see, this shrink wrap that I got right here is obviously not going to be enough, so let me grab something else. Got some shrink wrap by New Concepts. Go over things like this. I don't expect it to be nothing permanent on here, because if I ever get rid of the bike, then the plug will be here and ready to use and plug back in. I'll keep this receptacle here. If you do find yourself taking this wire out and you lose it or something like that, or you throw it away by mistake, that's your part number right there. It's $14.95 plus tax piece at Harley. So it's 692-00248. The Charlie is not needed. So just 629-00248. that'll keep away any, I don't know what debris would get up under here, but you know how stuff happens. Tuck that away right there. That way it's still in there and out of the way. The other is for the plug. So let me see if I can go ahead and take this out of here. There we go. Put that back in. Save that. Because chances is you're going to need it for something else, or somebody you know is going to need it, and it's going to be superseded or obsolete through Harley, and then you got to go through Amazon, and who wants to do all that? Alright, this right here is a right angle waterproof USB-C cable. It's 3 feet. Don't know why they make it 3 feet. You're never going to use anything longer than maybe 15, 16 inches of length. When it comes to your, well, I can see why they do it. If you put it in your amplifier in a tour pack or something like that, and you need to run it to something, I don't know. Either way it goes, I don't need 3 feet of it, so I'm going to have to bind it up. But this is what I'm using. This is what takes the place of this. So, kind of see the same concept there. Not to mention this screws on, so as you're riding along the road, you don't have to worry about when you hit a bump, this says boop boop. Then you gotta plug it back in when you get a chance, and then you hit another bump, boop boop. So yeah. I changed my mind. Instead of using that port right there where the auxiliary cigarette lighter is for most bikes, I'm gonna leave it there. I think I'm gonna go up at the top of the fairing to the left of the fuel gauge. I mean, it has a better cap on there. I can screw it on there so if it rains, I don't have to worry about it getting wet or anything like that. Plus, it's more of a direct run right into the cabin where the amp will be on the amp rack. So I think I'm gonna do it that way. I just came up with that while I was actually speaking to y'all and taking that Type-C cord out. That's how quick things can change. Well, as you can see, I was trying out this little test sound dampening that I have that I ordered from Amazon, and I shouldn't have ordered from Amazon. I should have just went to SoundSkins and got what I was originally gonna get. But since it's around the actual pod for the front fairing speaker, I guess this stuff is more like, I don't know, what a homeless person would probably stick on the inside of his clothes just to stay warm in the winter or something. I don't know. I mean, and that's not me taking a jab at homeless folks. It's just, that's what it seems like it would be. It seems more like it's a weather stripping than a sound dampener. I don't know. Okay, I gotta admit, when you don't buy it straight from Harley and you get an aftermarket version, sometimes you get that. Well, good thing is I'm not gonna be using this, so I'll be actually taking this whole front off. But, you know, after you check it, you know, the paint matches perfectly, so I like that. Like I said, I'm going to change this out for some actual 6.5 speaker pods opening. So hopefully I don't have to bore the inside of it out like I did with the last ones, because that was a real headache. This right here is the pod to put the 6.5 in. Only thing is that this inevitably gets in the way, which means you might, or I might, have to end up cutting this part of it out, which opens up and kind of turns that mid-bass speaker into a mid-range. If that makes any sense to all of you folks out there that know what I'm talking about, put it down in the comments. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I might end up having to make some actual ABS or PVC rings, because the speaker might have to sit up a little higher in here just so the magnet doesn't actually hit the bar. That's the reason why that's there like that, is because the engine guard bar would be in the way of it. So either way it goes, we're gonna have to work it out. I hate that I have to cut these because it kind of ruins the actual pre-mold finished look that it is. But anyway, we'll see what we can do. Now, because this isn't a Harley piece, I gotta take either this whole shield out, or I have to trim it. I have to trim this part off. So I'm gonna have to take this screw out, take that out, which is part of the apparatus that holds these two screws, which shouldn't hurt them. Those should still remain there. I usually put some glue on there to keep it from coming out anyway, but because it has this thing on here, this is going to get in the way of this. But I'm gonna go ahead and work with it because it isn't a Harley product. These are aftermarket Amazon specials. But because I like that the paint matches, I'm gonna go ahead and deal with it. So I'm not gonna even act like this is a problem. I'm gonna just act like it's part of the process. For my setup, introducing the CM65.2X. These are 6.5 speakers, and since I have the pod right here, I'm just going to test and see if they actually fit. Ah, look at that. It drops right in. The magnet is not huge or anything. That's cool. Cool. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and order some grills to also go over that. But there's also one thing that I just remembered right now. This opening right here that you see my fingertip coming through. That opening right there is going to be the most not confusing, but the most frustrating thing that you could ever think about. Because in order to put, just dropping stuff, in order to put this back on, which goes on the outside of the fairing, on the other side, like so, you gotta go through this hole, all the way through into this little pinch bolt that they already got here. I guess it's a pinch nut, I don't know. Anyway, you gotta make sure that you have this screw and that it doesn't fall out of this here, of your socket. And you gotta go through this hole, hoping that that screw or that bolt doesn't come out. And here's the next headache. Look at that. In my case, I don't have a longer extension that'll fit into this smaller socket head. So I got the adapter on there which doesn't go through, which means now I gotta make this hole larger in order to do so. And unless you just have the best luck in the world, when you go to put that bolt in there, you're gonna drop that screw. That screw's gonna fall out, then you have to kind of manipulate this thing loose, get the screw, put it back on there. But one thing you can do is actually put you like some axle grease or something like here, and it'll hold that screw in there. So when you actually go through there and find purchase in the hole, you can actually screw it in and tighten it. So let's find out what headache that's gonna put me through, because last time I threw a hammer across the garage, and in that garage it was a smaller garage then, so yeah. This here is my crossover, all right? So what I'm gonna also do with this is I'm gonna be doing some jigger rigging on this. I'm gonna end up cutting this end off. I'm gonna still use the plug, but yeah. The way I'm gonna have this situated in here, instead of putting it all up in here and taking off the side cover, I'm gonna have mine situated where I have the lead going through here like the original plug-in. That'll be this side here. That'll go in through there, like I said, and I'm gonna have this situated here. I'm gonna have a crossover on each side. That way they're out of the way and we don't have to worry about putting them inside the pod and they falling loose from any Velcro or any kind of glue you might want to stick in there. Road vibrations that'll get them all, and they knock down behind the mid-range speaker and, you know, just ugly. So if you ever had to replace a speaker and you look at it and you see this thing in there just sitting any kind of way in there, nah. So we're gonna have it at least affixed to the fairing. I guess you would say kind of like a fairing firewall. Either way, that's what we're gonna do. Alrighty, after getting the front plate back on there, which was very aggravating, which is why I didn't record it, because you had to get these little bitty screws in there from last time. Like I said, when you took out of there, you got to put them back in, and then you got to make sure that they line up with the holes, and it's just aggravating, but it can be done. Just a little patience. And right now today I'm like having no patience because the sun is out and the weather feels good and I'm stuck in here hooking this up. Before I put this on here, I also ran the speaker lead and the lead wire that goes to the custom dynamics LED light. Hopefully you guys can see this. I don't have the camera too close, but yeah. So I got those coming up through the inside of the actual lower fairing here. Here they are here. So that's the speaker wire, LED lead. I'll dress them up later. And I also have enough wire here on the other side because when I go to take the speaker out or hook it up, I got some room to do it. I don't have to worry about being all up close and trying to get the leads in. If you ever done this before, you know that can be a headache. Okay, I don't know if I remember telling you guys about how you had to put that little bolt in through the other side just to get it to line up with this in order to keep the back lid on here for that lower fairing. Well, it comes with this guy here, so hopefully you can see it. It is, here, let me put this down real quick. It is this guy here, so this is what they come with. It comes with this bolt here and this little clamp that actually pinches to the plastic on there. It has, hopefully you guys can see it, a little nut that's welded onto this clip. Well, when you're trying, like I said, to get a socket to hold on to this and go through that hole without hitting it and knocking it off and it falling down inside of the said fairing. So you got this here, and I knew this was gonna be an issue because my last pair of lower fairings had the same setup. But what I did is I went to Harley and I found out which ones they carry in their lower fairings, and they're somewhat similar, but they are a little bit different. So part number for this is a bolt retainer is 8175. So if you're ever getting any of these aftermarket lower fairings, go get you some of these because these are gonna work a lot better. You're gonna be able to actually put the nut inside of the socket, put it in there. Like I say, you take some axle grease or something like that. You don't need a lot, just enough in there just to hold it, push it in there, and you can start screwing it. But when you have this, you have a lot more room for it to fall out, and the weight of it is just weird and it won't stay in there. And trust me, if you don't do it this way, you're gonna live through that headache, and I won't care because I told you. okay, I gotta admit, I was trying to cut corners, and what I did is ordered a grill to put on the lower fairings. I ordered 2 of them actually, but this is a DS18 grill, and it didn't quite fit. So I said, well, I'll just go ahead and take back the Memphis shields that I had on there, and they didn't quite fit over the Cicada 6.5. So I had to order some grills from Cicada. Didn't cost much, but the fact was is I didn't have them on hand, so I'm gonna wait for them to come in so I can cover the speakers on the lower fairings up. So I'm gonna go ahead, and I know I went ahead and put the speakers in on the other side. I didn't go through the details of how I hooked it up. I'll go through that on this side, because in order to run those, I believe in series, or is it parallel? I don't know, I have to go back and look. But you have to make sure, I have to make sure that that amp goes to 4 ohms. So I'll be running 4 ohm out of the front first 2 channels, and I'll be running 2 ohm out of the 3 and 4. So either way, it worked for me. You can hook 2 ohm speakers up and remain at 2 ohms. Just not a thing. I wish it was. That would be a little more power, but hey, I'm happy with it. And plus I know how it sounds, you know what I mean? So if it sounds anything like the Memphis amplifier speakers I had in there, then we all good, you know what I'm saying? So if this is level up, that's even better. So let me go ahead and continue. I'm getting ready to put the left side, the actual clutch side speakers in, and I'll show you how I'm wiring those. So let's go. Boy, I really got a lot of scratches on my tank. And I know what it comes from. It comes from actual jackets that I may have on. It might have a zipper on it. And when that zipper hits this metal tank, I already know what it is because I hear it when it happens. Anyway, Cicada Audio 6.5 CM65.2X 2 ohm speaker. All right, so we got a 2 ohm speaker. I'm running 2 on each side, in the top part of the fairing and in the lower fairing. All right, what you want to do, get out my trusty piece of paper here. You're starting at your amp with a line that comes down, going into your positive on your first speaker. And guys, here, let me get this out of the way for you, because I know how we think. Okay, now, all right, so we started our amp with a line. We go down to our positive on this 2 ohm speaker, all right? Then we go from our negative down to the positive on the other 2 ohm speaker. The negative here runs all the way back to your amp, so it doesn't go back to your negative on the speaker. It goes all the way back to your amp. That way you're completing a series. Boom, boom, and through. All right. With this being the 2 ohms, 2 ohm speakers, if I ran it like positive to positive and negative to negative, you would be cutting it down to a 1 ohm, to 1 ohms. Anyway, and the amp is not 1 ohm stable. It's not a mono amp. It's an actual full range 4-channel amp. So in putting it into 1 ohm, you're just gonna burn that amp up real fast, or you're gonna tear up the speakers, because they're gonna be looking for a mono channel, and 6.5 in this case are not made for a mono channel signal that you would send to a subwoofer. All right, so this right here with these 2 ohm speakers, the way I got it wired up, it's gonna bring me back to 4 ohms at the amp. So that's good. Most vehicle amplifiers, car, boat, motorcycle, are all 4 ohm stable amplifiers for the most case. I've never seen an 8 ohm. I guess it could be an 8 ohm stable, but I've never seen an 8 ohm amplifier unless it had something to do with like in-home cosmetics. I don't know, but you don't want to go any lower than what that amp is useful for, or what that speaker is useful for. So if this would have said a 1 ohm suitable speaker, then yeah, I would have hooked it positive to positive and went negative to everything else. But like I said, I'm rambling. Let me go ahead, get this one put in. And remember, I don't know if I told you guys in the last video, or maybe the last section of this video, remember, you can cut the plastic out of here in order, it's not gonna reach all the way up, but it's got the forks on there. So if you're trying to put it, see how close they are to the edge? If you got those terminals going in this way, when you try and push that close to the surround, they just gonna run into the surround, then you're not gonna be able to get it closed. You can actually cut the sides though, over here, with just a little zip tie cutter. It's what I use. And you just run them in, the blades in sideways, therefore freeing up space that you're gonna need, because for real, the screw goes right here on this. I mean, you don't have to do all, well, you know what I mean. I only put the screws in about 3/4 of the way because I got to take them back out, and I don't want to ruin the plastic inside. So once I get the grills to put on there, I take them out, put the screws back in there, and push them all, not push them, but screw them all the way in so they have final purchase and they hold tight, and you'll be good to go. All right, remember, if you have to, keep you a diagram or a drawing or anything that you need to remind yourself of how to hook and wire different items and speakers, because with all of the distractions going on and everything else, you can get sidetracked. You may have to go and take a leak or something like that, and then you'll come back and you'll grab them wires and you'll hook them up wrong. So trust me, there's no shame in having a diagram or a drawing or something like that, or illustration that you can go off of, just so you don't mess that step up. Now, eventually, you're going to want to make sure that those speakers are hooked up the way they're supposed to be hooked up. So when the signal's going to them, they're either going to be producing outward or they're going to be pulling inward. You don't want one doing like this and the other one, you want them both doing one thing, or you want them doing the other. All right, you know what I mean? But they both have to be doing the same thing. And one quick way to test that out is with a polarity tester towards the end of your wiring hookup. So that'll come in later, but the best way to do it when you're in the middle of wiring to make sure everything is this way. Regular 9-volt battery. All right, so when you connect the positive end to the positive part of this battery, the negative end of the speaker to the negative part of the battery, they're gonna both produce what I call a positive input. So it's gonna make the speaker push out. You turn it around, you put the positive, say on the negative, and the negative on the positive, it's gonna pull the speaker in. In my case, I don't want the speakers pulling in. I want them pushing out, all right? So I'll show you what that means here. Alrighty, in this case, you're gonna listen for the sound, and I'll show you the example of it. All right, so right now, I know that this right here, because I have the two speakers wired up in a particular way, that this is my positive, this is my negative. So don't pay attention to the color of the wire. I already put the jacket heat sleeve over the positive, all right? So listen to this. So we're gonna put the negative here and listen. All right, now I'm gonna show you what the speaker's doing while I'm putting the two leads on the battery. Here we go. On 3. See that? Now if I reverse the battery, put it on different polarity, watch how the speaker pulls in. Since I have the speakers wired the way they need to be, I'm gonna go ahead with that lead that I have coming outside of the speaker that hooks to the actual tweeter in the grill. This guy here hooks into that plug. We're gonna go ahead and put those in, and as long as everything is good, well, we know the polarity is good. I just showed you guys. The front of the bike, as far as the front fairing, will be complete until I can get the radio and the harness back in there and everything else and do some wire management, of course, because you don't have a lot of room to do a lot of wire management with the Road Glide or the Street Glide setup. So you got to be very particular on where you placing the different wires, harnesses, and leads in there, because once you crunch that headlight back in there, you're gonna compress all of those different wires and cables and everything. So let's go ahead and get this part done. Okay, scratch that. The grills are not going in yet. For the simple fact that when I put the actual front fairing back on, the shark nose back onto the bike, I have to actually put a bolt in to hold it on there through where it's underneath where the speaker grill is. So sorry, I forgot about that part. Like I said, this is my first motorcycle. Hey, I still saw that. So the grills will get put on later. Mistakes happen. This part, I mean, it wasn't a mistake. I mean, I caught myself. Okay, so I've done some wire management. I've put some Tessa tape on a few things, dressed up some with some loom, put some heat shrink on there to identify the left and right of how I'm gonna hook it up to the amplifier. The next video, what I'll be doing is actually introducing the amplifier to that tray and getting those wires and different speaker leads hooked up as far as the power, ground, and remote. Get that hooked up on there as well. Then I gotta do some wire management again, because I also have to introduce the actual harness that hooks into the boom audio radio. So you have to excuse my voice. Feel like I'm coming down with a little seasonal cold or something. It might be allergies. Either way. And yeah, the T-harness that I'm gonna have to introduce onto the boom audio radio was provided by Cicada. If I remember, I'll put the link down in the description and we'll go from there. I didn't mean for this video to be that long. I don't know, it might not be long. I don't know. I'm getting kind of better at actually editing and not just running along with a whole bunch of stuff and footage. Other than that, I appreciate you guys coming back. Remember to hit that like, share, subscribe, comment down below. And if you like what I'm doing here, if I bring some entertainment value to you or just something to have on in the background while you're doing your taxes, that's cool too. I appreciate you letting the video play all the way through. Hit that like I said, subscribe to it. I think it's a notification bell somewhere to the left or right. I don't know. Either way, I'll see y'all in the next video. Aight then, peace.